Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into one specific source, but it's a pretty extensive and well-pointed article.
It certainly is.
It's titled, "He Lied to Us All, Why William Ruto is the Most Corrupt and Tribal President Since Independence." Comes from the Kenya Wantamnokum Movement blog, KWM, published July 8th, 2025. So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to unpack the claims, the perspectives, just what's presented in this piece about President William Ruto's administration in Kenya.
Right, focusing just on this source.
Exactly. We want to help you grasp the core message, the serious accusations it makes, and as always, it's really crucial we emphasize we're impartially presenting what the source says. We're not endorsing it, just trying to understand its content.
Yeah, and what jumps out right away is how comprehensive it is, especially for, having such a strong single viewpoint. And the way it's structured is interesting. It moves from what it calls this initial hope straight into a story of, alleged betrayal, and then lays out these very specific allegations. The core argument right from the get-go is that President Ruto's leadership has been marked by, in their view, deep corruption and tribalism, calling it the most since independence. That really sets the frame for everything else in the article.
It does. And it opens with a really evocative scene, doesn't it? The author talks about watching President Ruto speak in Kisumu, feeling this genuine spark of hope.
Right, that initial feeling.
Yeah, the description is quite vivid. You get a sense of this captivated crowd really believing in the man who claimed he represented the poor, the hustlers, the forgotten. And the promises, as the source describes them, were clear. Fairness, justice for the grassroots, and this powerful vow to, quote, cut the hands that steal from the people. That hope, the article suggests, it felt incredibly real at the time.
And that setup is crucial because connecting it to the bigger picture the source wants to paint, it then just pivots immediately, right away, from that optimism to the central argument, a betrayal of hope and unity.
A stark contrast.
Exactly. The article claims that, in the shadow of speeches, this empire was quietly built on corruption. It directly contrasts that populist talk with what it alleges was the harsh reality.
So the source uses this sort of before and after narrative to really hammer home its point.
Precisely. That those initial promises weren't meant to be kept, basically serving as a smokescreen. That's the argument.
And it doesn't waste time getting specific. Right after that pivot, it jumps into the SH 129 billion tree planting initiative. That's a huge figure to lead with, isn't it?
It is a massive sum. And this program, marketed as environmental renewal, the source describes it as, a cover-up for the largest heist of public funds.
Wow. And it names names.
It brings up Justin Muturi, who held a prominent government role, and the source claims he exposed how this project supposedly bypassed legal processes.
Okay.
The KWM article is firm on this, saying it wasn't an oversight. This was a calculated scheme to funnel money into private pockets. That's the direct claim.
So from alleged financial wrongdoing, where does the article go next?
It shifts pretty strategically, I think, to claims about political maneuvering, consolidating power.
Yeah.
It talks about those big nationwide protests in 2024 over the finance bill, always a touchy subject, taxes.
Right.
And it notes that Kenyans, especially the youth, were out there because they felt those earlier promises just weren't happening.
So how does the article link the government's reaction to those protests to this bigger theme of betrayal?
Well, that's where the source makes a pretty strong claim. It says Ruto reshuffled his cabinet in response, but not, as the article puts it, to heal wounds.
Okay, so what was the alleged reason then?
The article argues it was done to solidify his control. It even suggests the new blood brought in were just, quote, recycled figures from the old guard and loyalists rather than reformers.
So not just consolidation, but a specific strategy using familiar faces.
That's the accusation. Using words like recycled and loyalists implies a deliberate plan to entrench power, not just a standard cabinet change, according to the source anyway.
That's quite an interpretation of intent.
Yeah.
And the piece goes on to allege that opposition leaders were lured into government.
Yeah, with the promise of shared governance, only to become muted voices, it says, silenced.
Which, the article claims, allowed the finance bill to pass amid cries of injustice.
Exactly. With no apology, only silence from the administration. That's the narrative. And the KWM article wraps up this section by concluding that Ruto's Kenya is not a country of progress. It's a country where power is consolidated under the guise of reform, really framing its view of the political scene.
Beyond power politics, the article levels a really strong charge about ethnic favoritism.
An incredibly strong one. It says, Kenya's always struggled with tribalism, sure, but under Ruto, that struggle, quote, morphed into a full-blown betrayal. That's a major claim about the impact on national unity.
And does the article offer specifics to back that up? Evidence for this alleged favoritism?
It elaborates by alleging the administration appointed allies from specific communities to key positions, while supposedly ignoring the rest of the country.
So favoring certain groups.
That's the claim. That ministries and parastatals, those state-owned agencies, they became rewards for political loyalty rather than positions for competent leaders. The article suggests it's systemic, based on allegiance, not merit or, national balance.
And what does the source say are the consequences of this alleged approach?
Pretty stark consequences, according to the source. Entire regions are left behind. It claims promises of infrastructure roads, schools, hospitals are never kept in certain areas.
Implying a deliberate withholding of development.
The source interprets it that way, like a clear message: support the regime or you get nothing. Which, the article argues, just deepens those tribal divides that, as it notes, have plagued the country for decades.
From there, it seems the article really zeroes in on corruption. There's that subheading, right? When cabinet became cash cows.
Yeah, that section is pointed. The source makes this sweeping assertion that under Ruto, corruption wasn't just, allowed to happen. It was, according to this KWM article, normalized.
Normalized. That's a strong word. Does it give concrete examples?
It does. It doesn't shy away. It describes ministers allegedly living far beyond their means, state contracts ballooning in price, claims of ghost projects and ghost suppliers.
Ghost projects, meaning?
Projects that exist on paper, get funded, but are never actually built. The source alleges billions were siphoned off, and the people paid the price. It paints this picture of systemic financial misuse, public funds being diverted.
Right. And I remember the outline mentioned, it brings up historical examples too.
Yeah, exactly. It brings up older scandals, almost like echoes to underline its point. It mentions the ghosts of the Air and Kimware dams, specific big scandals where billions meant for dams allegedly vanished.
Okay.
It also points to the Weston Hotel, which the article states sits on public land, and the Ngong forest grab controversy, claiming it still hangs over us like a dark cloud.
And the core critique here, from the source's perspective, is lack of accountability.
Absolutely. The article emphasizes that no top official has been held accountable for these alleged acts, and it concludes this part very strongly, saying that in Ruto's cabinet, corruption isn't punished, it's protected.
Wow. The article then shifts focus again, this time to the youth and alleged crackdowns on dissent. It talks about June 25, 2024.
Yes, describing it as a real turning point. What started as peaceful protests about taxes, the source claims, allegedly ended in a bloodbath.
A bloodbath.
That's the term used. The article reports more than 20 protesters, most under 30, were supposedly killed by the state. A very, very serious accusation being made by this source.
How does the KWM article describe the government's alleged response?
In really stark terms. Plainclothes officers firing live rounds at unarmed civilians, dragging activists from their homes, and silencing the voices of dissent. The piece definitely pushes a narrative of state violence against citizens, highlighting what it presents as a disregard for rights and liberties.
And the source claims this crackdown continued afterwards.
It does. It says fear spread. Youth organizers were allegedly threatened, some forced into hiding, others, it claims, just vanished. Then the article criticizes the government's counter-narrative, dismissing the protests as sponsored chaos, blaming foreign influence.
Right.
Which leads the article to conclude this section powerfully, that the real fear wasn't in the streets, it was in the halls of power. Describing a regime supposedly afraid of its people, especially the youth, demanding change.
So that leads into the final part of the article, its conclusion.
Yeah, and it starts by acknowledging that, being lied to is, as the source puts it, a recurring cycle in Kenyan politics.
The familiar pattern.
That's the idea. The article observes that politicians promise revolution but deliver stagnation, that they come to power poor and leave it rich. It frames this as a cycle that has gone on long enough, really setting this tone of urgent need for change.
So given that pretty bleak assessment from the source, what solutions does it actually propose? Does it go beyond just saying vote them out?
That's a good question. It does move beyond just diagnosing the problem. It argues that voting is just one part of the equation. It really emphasizes the need to Organize, scrutinize, and hold our leaders accountable.
Accountability at all levels.
Exactly. It stresses this is needed everywhere: county governments, MPs, senators, highlighting that the presidency isn't the only place where, as the article claims, corruption breeds.
Mhm.
The piece argues, quote, every stolen shilling at the local level impacts a child's future. Every fake tender builds a politician's mansion. It's a strong call for, like, broad grassroots vigilance.
And then it issues a direct call to action.
Yes, an urgent one. It asserts that silence allowed this corruption to grow unchecked.
Yeah.
It directly encourages individuals to make noise, speak up, ask questions, challenge your leaders.
Does it suggest practical ways to do that?
It does. Things like attending local community meetings, ward barazas, demanding budget transparency, exposing shady deals,
Yeah.
practical steps for citizen engagement. And it really emphasizes community connection, urging readers to talk to your neighbors, your coworkers, your community, share your story, hear others out.
And this is where the website comes in.
Right. The source specifically recommends connecting through online forums, mentioning www.wantumnotam.com as a way to amplify the truth. Now, this is presented by the article as a key way to foster collective action and share information, making the fight communal.
Got it. So that's the source's recommendation within its own call to action. And how does the article end? What's the final message?
It leaves the reader with a really powerful final statement. Quote, democracy dies in whispers, but it thrives in conversation. This is your country, your taxes, your future. Don't wait for someone else to save it. Start the conversation. Light the fire.
Very direct. Huh?
Extremely. It continues. If we speak now, we can stop the next lie before it takes root. If we speak now, we can end this era of betrayal. If we speak now, we win. It's a direct, urgent appeal for the reader to take ownership and action.
Okay. So that brings us to the end of this deep dive into this very detailed article from the Kenya Wantum Notam movement.
Yeah, we've walked through its main claims, from that alleged betrayal of hope to the normalization of corruption claim, the silencing of dissent, and finally, the source's own strong call for citizen action.
And it definitely raises a big question for you, the listener. How do citizens, especially young people, navigate a situation where you have such strong claims of disillusionment on one hand and these really passionate calls for vigilance on the other? And maybe thinking about the long-term implications for national unity, for democratic accountability, based on the kinds of issues raised in this specific source.
It's a question that resonates far beyond just Kenya, doesn't it? That tension between civic engagement and, well, disillusionment.
It really does. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Our goal, as always, is to give you that shortcut to being well-informed on complex topics, looking directly at the source material itself.
Hopefully, this gave a clearer understanding of what's being claimed in this particular piece.
We hope so, too. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep digging deeper. We'll catch you on the next one.